A young woman named Becky, together with her husband Dan and her close friend Hunter, share a passion for extreme sports. During one of their climbing expeditions, Dan makes a fatal miscalculation and loses his life. A year after his tragic death, Becky sinks into a deep depression, isolating herself from those who care about her. Evenings blur together as she drowns her sorrow in alcohol, memories of Dan fading with each drink. One such evening, as she steps out of a bar, she unexpectedly encounters her father. He tries to reason with her, insisting that self-destruction is not the answer. If their roles were reversed, Dan wouldn't let grief consume him in the same way. Day after day, Becky listens to Dan's old voice messages, clinging to the sound of his voice. But eventually the number is disconnected, and the realization hits her. She will never hear him again. With that, she contemplates taking the easiest way out. Just as she's about to give in to despair, her phone rings. It's Hunter. She bluntly tells Becky that she looks like absolute shit and that it's time to get her act together. Hunter has an idea, something Becky won't like, but she urges her not to dismiss it immediately. There's a towering abandoned B-67 structure located about 6 hours away. Hunter plans to climb it and wants Becky to join her. It could be the perfect place to scatter Dan's ashes. Becky refuses at first, but by the next day, she changes her mind. Hunter is thrilled that Becky is finally making a move in the right direction, and together, they embark on the journey. As they travel, they stop at a roadside motel for the night. Over dinner, Hunter shares details about her video blog, where she documents her extreme adventures. Becky acknowledges that Hunter has an effortless way of capturing people's attention. She's naturally cool and doesn't need to put on an act to gain followers. Later, after discovering that charging devices at their destination cost money, Hunter demonstrates a clever trick. By unscrewing a light bulb from a fixture, they can tap into the power source to charge any gadget. When they arrive at the site, the girls pack light, bringing only a 15-meter rope, a selfie stick, a drone, and a couple of bottles of water. The plan is straightforward. Spend no more than 2 to 3 hours climbing the tower, taking a few pictures and scattering Dan's ashes. However, Becky, after a year of drinking and avoiding physical activity, is visibly anxious. With trembling hands, she follows Hunter up the corroded ladder. The higher they ascend, the more unstable the structure feels. The wind picks up and the rusted metal creaks ominously with every step. Around the 300-meter mark, one of the ladder rungs snaps, prompting them to pause and take a break. Becky begins doubting herself, questioning if she made a mistake in agreeing to this. But Hunter, ever confident, reassures her. After hydrating and resting, they press on. Once they reach 500 meters, they transition from the interior ladder to a dilapidated external staircase leading to the top platform. This new section looks even more precarious, seemingly held together by sheer luck. As Becky inches higher, her fear intensifies, and she begs Hunter to turn back. But Hunter refuses. If Becky retreats now, it means she's letting fear win, and Hunter is determined not to let that happen. Navigating past obstacles like communication plates, Hunter decides to amp up the thrill, pushing Becky's nerves even further. When they finally reach the summit, they celebrate with some daring selfies, record footage with the drone, and take a solemn moment to reminisce about Dan before scattering his ashes. At last, Becky feels liberated. Her fears no longer control her, and she is ready to move forward with her life. With a newfound sense of closure, she suggests they begin the descent. Just as Becky begins her descent down the ladder, the rusty structure suddenly gives way, and the inevitable happens. The ladder collapses. Fortunately, the safety rope allows Hunter to grab hold of Becky, preventing her from plummeting into the abyss. With a great effort, Hunter manages to pull Becky back up to the top of the tower. The girls are shaken by what just happened, but relieved that they were able to handle the situation. Hunter remarks that it's a shame they didn't capture such an epic moment on camera. At that very moment, they come to a grim realization. The only way down was via the now collapsed ladder. Becky begins to panic, fully grasping the severity of their predicament. They are stranded atop an abandoned tower in the middle of the desert. Their phones have no service, they have no food, and all their water is in a backpack that fell onto a satellite dish. To make matters worse, Becky fails to notice at first that she has suffered a deep cut. Hunter tries to remain optimistic, reassuring Becky that the loud crash of the ladder must have echoed far enough for someone nearby to hear and call emergency services. However, 5 hours later, as they sit there waiting, the grim reality sets in. No one is coming. Hunter recalls that her phone was getting a signal down below because she saw Instagram likes coming through earlier. However, she has no way of knowing exactly at what altitude the signal was lost. Hoping the cutoff point was close to the top, Hunter ties her phone to a rope and lowers it down, trying to catch a connection. Unfortunately, this yields no results. Becky suggests that they draft a message to be sent automatically the moment the phone regains a signal. They carefully place the phone inside a sneaker, cushion it with a push-up bra for protection, and drop it down. Whether the message was successfully sent or if the phone shattered upon impact remains unknown. All they can do now is wait and hope for the best. A little while later, Becky notices a tattoo on Hunter's leg. At that moment, she spots a man with a dog through her binoculars. The girls start shouting at the top of their lungs, desperately trying to get his attention. However, the 600-meter distance proves too much. Their voices don't reach him. Becky starts throwing her sneakers in a last-ditch effort, and for a moment, it seems like the man notices. His dog clearly reacts to the shoes falling from above, but the man himself seems indifferent and eventually walks away. Becky then decides to use the flare gun they found in the supply crate, but Hunter stops her. She points out that there are parked vans a little further away, meaning someone is nearby. The flare would be more effective in the dark when it's guaranteed to be seen. As night falls, Becky watches old videos of her and her husband, noticing how Hunter looks at their relationship with envy. Just then, Hunter alerts Becky that the men near the vans are getting ready to leave and urges her to fire the flare. "Come on, give it to me," she insists. The two men see the flare shoot into the sky and notice the flashing light from their phone. At first, it seems like they understand the girls are trapped, but as Hunter watches them closely, she realizes something horrifying. They aren't coming to help. Instead, they decide to steal the car the girls arrived in. Becky's eyes fall on Hunter's leg again, and suddenly something clicks. She remembers how her husband Dan never actually said, "I love you," but instead used the code 143, the very same numbers tattooed on her friend's leg. It's then that Hunter finally confesses she had an affair with Dan. Their relationship lasted for about 4 months. Apologizing, she tells Becky that it was Dan who initiated everything. Hunter eventually ended things with him, but after his death, she was never able to be a true friend to Becky and help her through the grief because she was drowning in guilt. Becky points out that it has now been 24 hours since they dropped the phone, which only means one of two things. Either Hunter's 60,000 followers don't care about her, or the message never went through. Hunter then suggests that she might be able to retrieve the backpack that got caught on the satellite dish. If she succeeds, they'll have access to water and, more importantly, a drone. They could use it to send a message back to the hotel where they had dinner. Becky warns that it's a reckless idea, but Hunter insists they have no other choice. Summoning every ounce of courage, she begins her descent. Hunter gets painfully close, just a couple of meters short of grabbing the backpack. Left with no alternative, she unclips herself from the rope to lower herself even further. With a powerful swing, she leaps onto the satellite dish, successfully grabbing the backpack. But now a new problem arises. How does she get back up? Thinking fast, she uses a selfie stick to hook the backpack onto a loop of rope. Then, taking a massive risk, she jumps onto it, putting herself in serious danger of falling. From below, Hunter shouts to Becky, "It's a team effort now. She'll climb the rope, and Becky must pull as hard as she can." Just as Hunter is mere moments from reaching the top, she suddenly loses her grip on the rope and plunges downward. For a long time, Becky can't bring herself to look. She knows what must have happened. Her friend is gone, but against all odds, Hunter is still alive. She managed to latch onto the backpack mid-fall, though her hands are severely injured. Now everything depends on Becky, whether she can summon the strength to save her. Mustering every ounce of willpower, Becky fights through exhaustion, pulls Hunter up, and rescues her from certain death. After gulping down a few sips of water, Becky scribbles a plea for help on a piece of paper, secures it to the drone, and sends it soaring toward the motel. But their hope is short-lived. The drone's battery is nearly drained. With no other choice, they hastily recall the device, bringing it back before it crashes. As they sit under the vast night sky, sinking into despair, Becky suddenly notices a small blinking warning light. A memory sparks. Back at the motel, Hunter had managed to charge her phone by pressing the charger against the lamp's batteries. If it worked then, it should work now. If they can charge the drone, they'll have one last real shot at rescue. The only problem? The lamp is 9 meters higher. At the break of dawn, Becky begins the perilous climb. When she reaches the signal light, she attempts to connect the charger, but the contacts don't quite touch. Thinking fast, she slides her gold ring between them, completing the circuit. Success. The drone begins charging. Now all she has to do is endure, hanging on for as long as possible to store enough power for the flight. Becky's will to survive is so overwhelming that even the relentless parrot flapping around her doesn't faze her. After accomplishing the task against all odds, she climbs back down and immediately prepares to launch the drone. It speeds toward the motel, just a few more meters. But at the very last second, disaster strikes. The drone loses power and plummets. Becky breaks down, screaming in anguish. Their last chance is gone. Making it through another night, let alone waiting for help, now seems impossible. Desperate, Becky makes a final gamble. She'll throw her phone, hoping that the message gets sent and the device survives the fall. She turns to Hunter, asking for her sneakers, but her friend hesitates. Then, with a quiet voice, Hunter tells her she doesn't have them. At first, Becky doesn't understand, and then the truth crashes down on her. Hunter is already dead. In reality, when Becky thought she had pulled her to safety, it was just an illusion. Hunter had actually fallen, her body landing on the satellite dish below. Becky was too terrified to face the truth, so her mind clung to the comforting illusion that her friend was still with her. But now she has no choice but to accept the reality. She is completely alone. The next morning, Becky sits in a daze, motionless, as a vulture pecks at the open wound on her thigh. Suddenly, in a surge of survival instinct, she grabs the bird by the head, kills it, and devours it raw, forcing herself to regain strength. With her body replenished, her grim version of fast food, Becky descends the rope to where Hunter's body rests. She types a message on her phone for her father, pleading for immediate help. Then, in a desperate yet calculated move, she places the phone inside her sneaker, carefully tucks it into Hunter's body, and pushes it off the edge, sending it plummeting to the ground below. That evening, Becky's father receives the message. His heart races as he alerts the authorities and rushes to the tower. When he arrives, emergency vehicles are already clustered around the base. Scanning the scene frantically, he searches for his daughter, but instead he sees the rescue team zipping a body into a bag. His stomach drops. He fears he's too late. But then, at the very last moment, he hears it. A voice, weak but unmistakable. Becky's voice calling for him from inside the ambulance.